So were these meant to be noise makers? Or were they cores for making other implements? Were Canary games, maybe reminiscent of Chinese checkers. This is interesting. Was it an innovation where you maybe put a stick in here that had a little downward protrusion and you were able to go around like that and grind with some kind of stone? Huh. These are just human-like drawings, but notice how precise those grooves are. Now, they're not really when you look at them closely, but they look like they are from a distance. This is just faint that we can see it. There's some kind of animal's head, neck, an eye. Stone versions of corn. Wonder what they were used for. The stone chair. So also this one. These were weights for fishing nets. These are Canary. Could that be a corn opening device there? Some small sculptures of pregnant women, often used to give greater hope and religious connection for birthing. Bowl, but nicely designed, it looks like, and executed with these striations for design. These are probably drawings of the typical kinds of sculpture forms. No doubt fertility related. Small sculptures, if you can see them, reflect various kinds of hairstyles. These are shell and pearl oyster ornament. Imagine when those were very important to the women who owned them, or the men. The first buttons, perhaps. I'm joking about first, but buttons, they look like. Being the indigenous drawing of a foot in a very active pose. Really a pretty unique vessel given its shape. Some kind of a vessel for pouring foods. There's a plate, we would more likely call it a bowl, but it's beautifully elegant. And that presumably is a bath sculpture. Very interesting. Notice the little hole at the top of this one closest to us, so that when you fill it up, air comes out and allows you to keep filling it.
Notice this vessel has 3 bulbs, if you will, each of which is connected in 2 ways to each other. Why?
Simply labeled a bottle of a pregnant woman. I don't know what this is designed to portray. My first impression is a blowfish. These are different Aboriginal tribes. Note to myself, everything after this sign is of this group. Everything before is of that other sign. Say what all these are for, but they suspiciously look like highly decorated, either devices for holding garments closed or for opening corn husks, or both. Notice with this one, the 3-dimensional form that it has with that protrusion in the lower right-hand corner may have allowed it to have a grip for a very specialized purpose. That those 2 cone-like shapes or pointy shapes would have had. These are molds. How clever. But for what? Chocolate? Other vessels? Just some various human heads may have been used in burial goods. Notice that large one would have been hollow, apparently. Very crocodilian. These are graters, which is interesting, like for lemon peel and so forth. What they used them for, I don't know. These are graters. What they used them for, I don't know. Maybe lemons or something. It's interesting because it appears to be a plate for maybe holding fruit, and yet that seems to be the hole at the end of a bottle in this phaline form. They're called love carvings, memorializing pairings, marriages, etc. Don't require too much explanation, except that some appear to be circumcised. All appear that way. This is probably a woman's scariest nightmare. The facial expressions achieved on these. A gentleman commented, I could overhear him, how some of these sculptures look so Chinese or certainly Asian. Maybe these are just the human mind's common ability to conjure up demons. This does look Egyptian. Was this a culture that reformed heads? Or do those reflect head dresses? Just a curious vessel. Understand how statues like this can give archaeologists and anthropologists of a clue of the kind of garments, maybe even the decorations of those garments. Imagine how something like this would be a cultural theme for a while that was artistically hot. They're just caricatures of animals, although it's difficult to detect what the animal is. Perhaps they're intentionally mythological, although that has a crab-like look to it. Was there a function for the whole? Did they burn incense? Imagine this all painted up. It'd be quite dramatic as some kind of a pot. It's interesting how things like cylindrical seals were used in many cultures. Cultures in Europe, as well as here, maybe even in Asia, I don't recall. But is this just a natural, intuitive invention of the human mind? It makes sense, particularly in an era when clay was used as tablets for recording information. I don't know what these would be for unless there were little candles inside that give a curious light to a room. These are rests, but they don't say for what. The Egyptians used something like this for sleeping at night. They rested their necks on this, which is interesting. Would this hole have allowed you to put something in it? If, like hot water, if you were using it as a neck rest. Some large pots for storage, grain, fluids. These are from the 500 AC to 500 DC, whatever that means. This is a skull that has gold in its teeth, see it? I mean, that in itself is a rather unique capability or skill. It also implies tremendous pain. It implies dentistry. It says these are Siamese women. Could this have been something that was actual, historically factual? This is probably about 2 feet across. Many of these are larger versions of what we've seen. These are interesting because of this conical design and yet opened at the top. Did it hold, for example, cosmetics? Seeing this is just a box whipped up for photographing some of these items. Looking bowl, isn't it? Almost crab-like, somewhat creepy actually. But a clever stylization. The drum head, apparently, with a painted base. Maybe stones or seashell or conch shells, common from the coast.